I think we are ready for our second speak of the night, which is Victoria Tillotson, who works for the Pervasive video studio in Bristol. So Victoria, all yours. You're a producer? Yeah. The lights off also? Is it from there?
Okay, hi everybody, thank you so much for coming. So Paul invited me here tonight to talk a little bit about the work that we do at Watershed over in Bristol. He gave me a very open brief, so I thought I'd do a kind of quick description of what we do, and I picked out a few projects. But I have been having a bit of a crisis about which projects to pick, because there are so many, so hopefully they'll be interesting for you. If you have a question at any point, please do just stick your hand up and ask if I say anything that doesn't make sense or you want to ask something about it. And also, I'm not a technologist, so if you ask me anything complicated about technology, I probably won't know the answer. But hopefully the projects will speak for themselves. Who's been to the Watershed? Hands up. Quite a lot of people. Who's been to Pervasive Media Studio? Few less people. Okay, so Watershed, for those that haven't been, is in Bristol on the harbour side. It's kind of most well known for being a cultural cinema, and we have a cafe bar and some conferencing spaces there. But down the back of the building, this is Watershed's blue building here, we have Pervasive Media Studio. You kind of have to wind your way through the cafe and down a corridor to find it, but it's a research lab that's dedicated to supporting projects that kind of explore mobile, wireless and sensory media in all sorts of different ways. So the studio brings together artists, designers, technologists, academics to kind of, they all come with their own projects, but they're all centred around the exploration of new technologies. Some are cultural, some are commercial, and we kind of run the space on the idea that if we bring lots of people from lots of different perspectives together to kind of share ideas, then hopefully everybody's ideas will get better. That's the kind of ethos behind it. We run it in collaboration with Bristol University and the University of the West of England. Their Digital Cultures Research Centre is based there, which is really great because we get a lot of academics who are kind of looking at digital cultures in all sorts of different ways. And from Bristol University, we collaborate with computer scientists, so we get a lot of those kind of PhD students and lecturers in, which is fantastic. So my role there and the team at Watershed, what we do in our role as producers is to kind of bring people into the studio space, and they usually start off at kind of beginning of this diagram, so everybody's sort of together, and then we shepherd them through this kind of amazingly complex process of research and development, which takes people in all sorts of different directions. Most of the projects that we do bring together people from different disciplines, so often there's kind of points where people really spark off each other, and then other points where people might be arguing a little bit, or you know, maybe sharing things that they don't quite understand. So our job is to kind of help people through that process. I thought the best way to kind of explain that was to maybe talk about a few projects that we've done. So Ghosts in the Garden was a project that was supported through our React fund. People come to the studio through lots of different ways. So some people apply to the studio because they've got a great idea. They come with their own funding and they have desk space there for 3, 6 months or a year. Some people apply to some of the funded programs that we put call-outs for. So React is one of those. It's a program that we run in collaboration with University of West of England, Cardiff, Bristol University, Bath University and Exeter University. So what the programme is doing is funding kind of cohorts of projects over the next 4 years, and each cohort is themed around a different kind of aspect of maybe culture or things that are kind of coming up in the technology world that is an interesting point to explore. So the first one of these sandboxes was Heritage Sandbox, so it was looking at cultural heritage projects. The one that's running at the moment is Future Publishing, so the future of books and print. The next one, which the application deadline has just gone for, is interactive documentary. And then following that, the next one coming up will be objects, so thinking about how people can use the Internet of Things or network technology within objects to create new kind of services, products, or kind of cultural experiences. So this project was from the very first sandbox that we ran. What they wanted to do is create a collaboration between Splash and Ripple, who were a Pervasive games company based in Bristol, Dr. Steve Poole, who is a historian at the University of the West of England, and the Holborn Museum, which has this amazing kind of pleasure gardens, which has so much history steeped in it. But most of the people who come to the museum don't know about it, or it's difficult to access. So what they did was they worked together to create these Georgian listening devices. So basically, families could go around with these boxes around the outdoor space of the museum, and it would reveal kind of voices from the past. So working with a historian, they created a kind of game-like experience which took you on different paths around pleasure gardens. And you got these kind of amazing voices from the past speaking out of the boxes. So families could kind of gather around the boxes, and it was a completely different way of experiencing the museum and understanding things that had been there before. There's videos for all of these projects online, so you can go on and have a look, and they'll explain it a lot better than me, probably. This project was from a studio residencies call that we put out. So we'll be doing another one of these calls this year, where we just put a call out there just for interesting projects that use arts and technology. So it's really open to all disciplines, and you can come and at it from a kind of technology or an arts point of view. But we really try and get as diverse a range of people coming to it as we can. So this was a project by Juno Projects. They collaborated with an academic from the Bristol Robotics Laboratory called Adam Spears. He, in his day job, works on robots for surgery, so the kind of haptic robots that they kind of use. You've probably seen them on Holby City and things like that. So in his spare time, he applies that knowledge that he has to creative and cultural projects. So he collaborated with Juno Projects, who are a visual arts duo. They're based in Birmingham, but they create really amazing works that explore post-apocalyptic scenarios. So they created together this drawing robot called Bartleby. And basically what it did is it took drawings that Juno Projects did, so they basically fed those into the computer, and then Bartleby would kind of re-render those drawings for them in his own way. So they were really looking at emergent behaviours and the ways in which technology can change the perspective of something, or create a new kind of form with just the kind of ways in which it chose to move from point A to point B as it drew the animals. So each of the animals that it drew were animals from post-apocalyptic scenarios. So the birds and things, they'd imagined that data would be stored within the birds in a kind of sort of half organic, half data-driven beings in a way. So they had an exhibition at the Kerry Hand Gallery in London called the Infocalypse Stack. Which just closed in March. It was really amazing because a lot of the projects that we do, because they're research and development, they're very early stage ideas, and we ask people to kind of create a prototype, but often it's a lot of smoke and mirrors and it might not be working properly, but it gives people a platform to be able to maybe get further funding, or just get a proof of concept of the idea that they actually want to create. Or even, try and make it and realise actually it doesn't work at all and there's no point in doing it. That rarely happens, by the way. But it could, and that would be fine. It was quite amazing for us that something that somebody created on one of our residencies could actually be exhibited straight away. It's really unusual, but we were quite excited about it. This is a project, we ran some craft and technology residencies at the beginning of this year, so we were really interested in how makers could explore projects that would utilise the Internet of Things, so how we could create new kind of interactive objects. So there was 3 projects that were funded under this scheme. Chloe's was one of them. So I just thought I'd show you a short video from this one, just to give you a feel for a bit more about the studio and the way people work. This was a collaboration with Falmouth University, so Chloe was resident in Falmouth, but she also worked at Watershed in Bristol, so you'll be able to see both of that within the video.
For years I've been interested in dementia and the brain and music, like science-wise. Then using my skills, which are making and designing, how can I use scientific research to actually help people? If you take some research and maybe pair it up with a designer, then you can actually make something that can affect people and change people's lives. I first saw the positive effects of music on people with dementia when my great-gran was in hospital and she couldn't remember who any of her family members were, but in her care home she could just play the piano and play about 50 songs, all the lyrics, and sing along. Why does music have such an effect on people with dementia? And it's often the last thing that goes. As dementia gets progressively worse, music always stays there, and the part of the brain that links the music, emotions and memories together, that's the least affected part of Alzheimer's. So that's the point of the brain which I'm targeting through the project. It's multi-sensory reminiscence activities. The person you're trying to remember is not only an object, they're a song, they're a story in your life, and it's all about communication as well, because often people with dementia are quite difficult to communicate with, but putting on a favourite piece of music suddenly starts all these different emotions and memories. So what's this song? Why is it related to a chicken?
Because my father, when I was a child, had a wind-up gramophone, and my father was very fond of, what's her name? Gracie Fields, that's right. And I used to tease him about it.
Do you think you'll regard it as a precious object?
Well, the memory is precious,
yeah.
And to look at the chicken remind me of all this process that we've been through as well, which will be nice. And yes, of course it will remind me of that time. Yeah, I love those chickens.
So this is the first version of the music memory box, and it's one person's box called Barbara, and each object relates to someone in her family, and each object sets off an individual piece of music. I'm developing on the residency a kit version, so for example anyone that wants a music box, whether they're 7 years old or 80 years old, should be able to, with their families, make a kit about their most important memories, people and objects. The objects use RFID tags. They're used in Oyster cards around London. There's a reader inside the box that picks up this individual number. And so in the kit version, these all come as stickers, so you can attach them to objects you already own, or you can make new ones. I've been collaborating with Autonomatic, and I've been talking to Katie in particular about how the project develops.
I'm Associate Professor of Design at Falmouth University, and I lead the Autonomatic Research Group, exploring digital technologies and craft practices, working alongside Chloe. She's incredibly dynamic and hardworking, and she's really thrown herself into the work that she's doing in relation to health and well-being for dementia care. My role in supporting Chloe has been in discussing her design concept with her, introducing her to people who can help her with her project, in particular Arts for Health practitioners in Falmouth, and getting her access to the workshops here so she can actually make some stuff.
The new kit version includes a Raspberry Pi inside. That's how the whole system works, and I've been having some technical difficulties with this because I only know how to
Taryn from Watershed. He's been helping me design a web interface and also explaining how all the different parts connect together, so I can have lots of different ways people can program the box themselves.
Hi, I'm Taryn. I work here at the Pervasive Media Studio. My background is software. I've been doing that for many years, so some embedded systems. What intrigued me about Chloe's project is a really simple idea that has a great potential to help dementia sufferers. And music is a really powerful way of doing that.
Make the whole book this folder.
So I've been looking at the technical implementation of the system, writing the software for it, and also looking at how it might be made into a production model.
I've been looking at old radios from the 1950s for their visual aesthetics. I want the music memory box to look like a music player, because often people with dementia look into their earlier memories, so if it has certain grills or grates that promote the thought of it being a music player, this is what I want to achieve. Instead of alienating people with dementia, I actually create an accessible product for everyone. It's for anyone that wants to reminisce with their favourite objects and favourite music and develop it over their lifetime.
I mean, there's a network of over 100 people connected to Pervasive Media Studio, and a lot of the projects that we explore, there are people developing apps and kind of screen-based stuff, but we're also looking at how technology can become kind of really pervasive. So in things like the Georgian listening device, the robot arm, in Chloe's box, for example, it's kind of more about objects and kind of interaction with things, rather than thinking about, oh, I'm actually interacting with a piece of technology here. So it's looking at ways that technology can become more embedded in the everyday. I just thought I'd also say a little bit about the playable city. This is a theme that we're exploring at the moment, so we've got a few projects running looking at this. What we kind of mean by the playable city is something that moves away from this notion of the smart city, which all the big technology companies kind of really talk about and push forward. So you've probably all seen Minority Report. So we're trying to get away from that thing where you walk down a corridor and all the advertising comes at you because it knows who you are and what kind of things you like and who your friends are, to something that's like a bit more intuitive, engaging, a bit more kind of ground up and playable, you know, so it's not about corporate branding, it's about engaging people with their cities and with kind of issues of sustainability and the urban challenges that we're kind of facing. So how can we create digital projects which really connect people back with the cities and the urban environments that they reside in? So the Playable City started off with a sprint last February that we ran with the British Council. It brought together practitioners from across East Asia, so they came to Bristol from Japan, Malaysia, South Korea, Australia, and then we had some kind of artists and designers from across the UK as well. And we spent a week at the studio kind of, I guess, riffing on this idea of the Playable City and what it could mean. So 3 kind of project ideas came out of that. I have another short film which I'll show you in a second that kind of documents that week. We're now developing a similar project with British Council with Brazil, which is very exciting. So we're going to have people from Brazil coming over next January to take that forward. And we have a kind of Playable City Award, which is going to be running in Bristol this summer. So it's a project called Hello Lamppost. So it's going to be taking place across the whole city, where people can kind of interact with, I guess, things like street furniture and buildings and things that actually reside in the city. But there'll be more about that coming up. But I thought I'd play the video about where it all started, because one of the projects from the sprint that we ran last February we're also developing, and that's going to be taking place in May. So I really want you all to come and take part in that, but I'll tell you more about it afterwards. Watershed and the British Council are working working together this week on the Playable City Sprint with practitioners from across East Asia and practitioners from the UK to develop new ideas which respond to the concept of the playable city.
I was approached by the British Council, who invited me to come and take part in a project run at the watershed in Bristol, where they asked us to look at Bristol as a city, as a playable city, and really respond to that with a project.
I think it was great opportunities for us to bring together the people from different countries, different cultures, and provide opportunities for them to work collaboratively and also build a network and experiment with digital technologies.
I personally really like this process of knowing new things, when curiosity dominates your experience.
The brief in terms of making a city playable for the future was a kind of really interesting project I wanted to get involved in.
I'm really interested in this structure.
After a lot of prototyping, ideas, exploration, we began to build pretty much the smallest pirate radio station you're ever going to find, and it was a triangulated structure towed behind a boat which broadcasted live to participants who were following it on the banks of the river. Keep an eye on it and stay in range of the radio station so they could receive the broadcast from the radio station. Essentially what it was a platform for writers and for storytellers and for radio producers to make a broadcast but in a space that was live in the city and kind of capturing a different kind of magic that they'd normally be used to.
We researched the idea that cyclists needed some kind of way of giving their voice to the city, and we came up with a concept of bike tag, where people came together through technology and a physical game. It relies on a smartphone and some lights that you stick onto your bike. The lights signify a colour.
When the two bicycles meet and the two lights on your bicycle detect each other,
Your light in their light temporarily changes green to signify that a tag has taken place.
that data then goes on the map and shows areas where there's lots of bicycles meeting and having encounters.
Through the game, they are indirectly influencing town planning for the future.
We did come up with a lot of ideas, so we refined it, and what we ended up with was something that could go in quite a lot of different directions. So we had a mobile phone app that was kind of inviting people to explore different parts of the city, but this was also in conjunction with a kind of theatrical encounter with a character in a cafe. We actually tried to put together a mock-up film of what part of the experience of our game or event would be like for someone. So we could kind of give people an idea about what we've been working on. It's really exciting that we have managed to do something that does really cross our different sort of specialisms.
The space allows you to make your projects even faster and more streamlined because you can kind of collaborate. And I think without the technical guys, we wouldn't be anywhere near where we are, 5 days in.
We've just had the most amazing week of experimentation and support from people. So we've really come away with a great project, I think.
I think particular collaboration across disciplines is really useful. It creates this spark of different methods and different ideas and approaches that come together, which has really good outcomes.
I can't think of another context I'll be able to meet such a diverse range of people and really fully be able to kind of talk to them about ideas and interrogate different practices. So I think it's really, really valuable.
I also think it's been really fantastic to meet people who are so far away from Asia, who normally, I don't go there, they don't come here, we don't have this chance to talk together.
It was a really fantastic moment we have been through this week.
I learned quite a lot about the process of doing this sprint, so it's really very valuable, I think.
This kind of project benefits not only for the city, but for the people who inhabit and also the people who participate.
The thing that we would really like to do as a group would be to develop it a bit further. I think it would be a shame not to develop some of the projects that have been created over the 5 days.
It was really fascinating week for me, and just to think about how much energy is coming out from the diversified groups of people, and how much kind of friendship and also creativity coming out. And so it's just exciting to see what's going to be happening afterwards.
Looking for Julian, Bike Tech has been funded and will be taking place in May. Jay and Yun, who you saw in the video there, are coming back over from South Korea. They've been going through this crazy time of trying to create a game through the medium of Skype, which is quite tricky doing it across such a long distance. But they've come up with an amazing idea for using kind of bikes within the area around Bristol Temple Meads train station. So it will be a game that takes place after dark on bikes using LEDs and proximity sensors, and it will be brilliant, and they're still making it. But do come, because we're going to do it as a play test, so we're just going to test out, see what works, what doesn't work, but it will be really great. So I'm going to leave it there, but I mean, we've got loads of things coming up and things that you can get involved with. So every Friday at the studio we have open studios in the afternoon. It starts with a free lunchtime talk at 1 o'clock, and we have different ones every week. Some are studio residents, some are kind of associates who are doing interesting things that we invite in. So the next 4 are on there, but all the details are on the website, so you can check it out. And then you can just bring your computer down, log onto the wireless, sit on one of the hot desks we have there, and just kind of hang out and chat with people for the afternoon. That's every week. Bike Tag Play Test, 18th and 19th of May, do come to that. And we've also got some calls coming up through the year. So next Monday we're announcing for a Magician in Residence. So it's a project that we're running with Bristol University, looking at the way magic and technology can come together. We've got more studio residencies coming up this year, so they're going to be announced later on. So that will just be an open call for all disciplines. And then React, which is the project that we run with all the universities, their next call Object Sandbox will also be going out this year as well. So there's lots of things coming up to look out for if you're interested in getting involved. Great, hopefully I'll see some of you at the studio. Cheers, thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Do you want to take any questions?
Well, I think we've got them.
I think you have any question.
Maybe I'll explain that.
So with bike tag, one cyclist and another cyclist in opposite directions, they cross paths, they go green, and is this like a light show at night, like a light performance, or?
Julian, maybe you'd like to come and talk about it because it is your project. I did warn him, I'd probably put him on the spot.
Yes.
So the idea was that there's a set of lights, you can accessorize your bike. The green was a signification of a particular route being busy, and therefore the data would be tracked and you would in time get a sense of where the cyclists were going rather than where the actual particular routes were, and kind of long term it might potentially influence town planning. That was the kind of like the original idea, bearing in mind it was a 5-day project. And we did the tech for it, and we did the kind of very basic design. On the 18th and 19th of May, we'll be doing a variation of that theme, testing some more tech out and stuff like that.
So it's a light show and telling, oh, that person's come from spot.
Yeah, it's a bit of both. So there's a kind of community play aspect, and then there's a wider community aspect as well, theoretically.
So is it tracked, because you said it's marks when people meet, there's an online mark?
Yeah, it's an app on your smartphone, and then we're working on lights to talk to the app, but that's probably not going to happen by the 18th, so it's more 2 separate kind of things at the moment, and a bit of Wizard of Oz in between.
So that's a to-do.
It's just incredibly complicated, really, more than anything. But yeah.
Is the point really that cities are planned, that cycle routes and cities are planned without thinking about the people? This is a way of planners to understand how people actually move around rather than where they think they move around.
That's why I'm friends with you, Simon. Yeah, basically, there's a lot of bike maps that are produced by people who cycle, and they're very different to the routes or maps that are in city centres. And it's kind of trying to, I guess, open source or online those kind of information to allow people to kind of go, this is actually genuinely where I do go, as opposed to this blue line that forces me to cross about 15 different busy roads, get off and get on, and all those kind of things. So it's kind of like a lot of things in that. But we'll kind of be more testing the interaction between people on the 18th and 19th to be a bit more game and a bit more playful.
Have you thought about adapting it for cycle dating? So you program a city of people, I like the stone roses, oh, she likes the stone roses, both lights up green.
The traffic lights. It's totally different, yeah. Maybe. Anyways,
that's a good idea. No, it's fine. It's fine. I intended to do a plug for you. It's the next thing coming up.
Yeah.
Any other question?
The studio residencies, can you give any little bit more information about what the call might entail?
The studio residencies call will be really open, so it just looks for people who are interested in developing ideas kind of at the intersection of arts, culture and technology, so that in itself is quite broad. We always ask for people to be quite open and generous, because the studio runs on an economy of generosity, so nobody pays to be there, but everybody kind of contributes to the community and reflects on other people's ideas. So people coming to do the residencies need to have that kind of attitude. And also be prepared to kind of blog process online as you go along, and not be afraid to present something which isn't maybe completely finished, because we think there is kind of a lot of value gained from putting out an idea that's maybe only half ready, to get kind of feedback and opinion to then make it better. So yeah, you need to be kind of open and generous and have a good idea. That's the kind of criteria that we're looking for.
Sounds good. And I've just got a question about the React. So it's in collaboration with several universities.
Yeah.
And what's the sort of academic proportion of the work there? Do you have to write papers and stuff like that? Or?
No, you don't have to. Each of the projects has to have an academic partner from one of the 5 universities, but there can also be academic partners from other universities as well, if that's what's right for your project. And it has to have kind of a creative practitioner, but that can be kind of from, from any kind of creative background. There's no kind of limit to that. And again, you have to have a good idea that brings those two things together, and also kind of uses new technologies in an interesting way that responds to the particular core. Those projects are kind of fully funded, so that buys the academic out of the university teaching for the time of the project, so that they can dedicate their time to kind of working on the idea that they've put forward. But what you have to do is what you propose to do in the application, which is up to you.
Thank you. Do you have any questions for the Dorkbot crowd?
Is anybody going to come to PM Studio? No? Oh my god, no man! I can't believe it. Yay! Please come, we'd love to see you over there.
Okay, thanks, Vic.